it's not just about watering the plants, because I take care of them and would like them to be with me as long as possible. The connection became so strong for her that she decided to give plants the voice we cannot hear, but by using movement controllers. Quoting: "The adventure of using the plants as controllers seemed invocating to me. I unclogged the entire Schefflera plant, touched it in various places, and checked the construction. However, it turned out that my hands cannot be kept capable of playing such instruments. Apparently, I don't have much electricity in me. Meanwhile, when Jacek Stomski touched it, all impulses were thrown out, and I came up with the idea that it would be cool if my plants played to create a subjective language with them." Here's the example of first plant-based instrument that she worked with. And after experimenting with Schefflera plant, she started exploring more ways to incorporate plants in her music. Her first significant piece, including bioinstrument, was Simona for accordion, percussion, and electronics. The piece is one of the examples of documentary pieces. It tells a story of Simona Kossak, who was a Polish biologist known for her activism. She strongly fought for protecting natural ecosystem in Poland. She called herself a zoo psychologist, chatted with animals, and lived in the woods more than 30 years without electricity or access to running water. She believed that she had a better connection with animals than with humans. To bring back the memory of Simona, Zemla decided to create a piece including various musical layers. Besides acoustic instruments, she used a bio-instrument, this time made out of spruce, and forest instrument made out of cones. You can see them here. She also used parts of recorded broadcast Dlaczego w trawie piszczy, which means why does it squeak in the grass. The story is based partly on a biography written by Anna Kamińska, but creating the story of a pain of a person trying to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. The tree is a symbolic part of the story. When Simona died, her favorite tree fell down. At the end of Zemla piece, we can hear the echo of a falling tree, meaning the end of the person, but also her legacy. Besides focusing on portraying a person, she reaches the political issues, often as a response to controversial political incidents happening in Poland. Meanwhile in Kraśnik, for flute, bass clarinet, cello, violin, and piano is an example of that. The piece was performed at Karol Lipiński Music Academy in 2021, after few of the Polish district has adopted resolutions which have been characterized by LGBT-free zones. These documents, initiated by ultra-conservative organization Ordo Juris, were a big shock to Polish society. This is actually how it worked in various places in Poland, especially this part. They had this place which just said that this place is just LGBT-free. Zemla piece was created as a commentary to this absurd situation. Although this situation in Poland was highly controversial, which caused a lot of trouble with this piece to be performed. Quoting: "The city Kraśnik became a symbol because of the councils were anti-5G in addition to the very anti-LGBT free zone, and so on. So in my performative piece, the musicians have their hands tied or blindfolded, their mouths and ears covered. They are unable to play. Instead of a note, I wrote a strong and specific statement as my personal commentary, and I was blocked. That absolutely could not be published in the occasion of a concert at Music Academy. I had to edit the description 4 times, and only in the 5th version, when I left the dry fact, which also looked very scandalous, it could go. This piece is an example where performatical, theatrical part is becoming an important piece to the expression as music is. We can actually look at the beginning of this piece. I mean, if my internet is gonna let me. I hope it will.
Are you connected to music?
No, it's my internet. Is there a Wi-Fi here?
Yes.
Maybe it's gonna work better. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's actually a different piece. It's connected. Okay. I'm sorry.
No problem.
It skipped for some reason. Oh no. I'm sorry.
No problem.
I don't finish yet. Again.
Do you want me to change the internet? Oh, okay.
I think it works. Yeah. This setup is actually also the part of the piece already. And so on. At the end, the pianist actually just lays down on a piano, on the keyboard of the piano. But let's move on to the next part, because this topic leads to another piece, The Creatures Invisibles, which is one of the microtonal pieces written by Zemla. Microtonality is a relatively new technique in her pieces. There are 3 existing compositions that includes microtones. What Feels Whisper for string and live electronics, The Creatures Invisibles for flute, bass, clarinet, percussion, 2 violins, cello, and original broom instrument, and Follow Him Through the Valley for electric string quartet and electronics. And the second piece was performed in 2022 at Warsaw Autumn. That was a reaction for massive strikes in Poland after tightening the abortion law and fierce deaths caused by it. The composition includes violent audio recordings from the protest marches and new instruments created for this piece, which you can see on the photos. A broomstick placed on the rack with attached bells symbolize witches who are able to demonstrate their strength in the fight of their own values and beliefs. Here are the parts of the actual score, the preparation of this instrument. She created it with her father and Paweł Romańczuk, which is a Polish Wrocław composer. The emotional value of this piece is strengthened by the lyrics saying, "I don't want to be the next one, and I am afraid." And following, "I want to be the next one, I am not afraid." The microtonal usage in this piece is quite traditional. Zemla uses various glissandos, multiphonics, and microtonal accidents through the narration. They are not the dominating technique in this piece. The more complex subject, in the case of microtonality, is Follow Him Through the Valley for electric string quartet and electronics. This piece was premiered this year at Muzyka Polonika Nowa Festival in Wrocław, Poland, by Neo Quartet. The name of the piece is original, although not the final title, of last book written by Marek Łasko, Polish author and screenwriter. He was one of the most important Polish authors in 1950s, whose novels became symbols of disappointment with realities of this time period. He was known as a rebel and a voice of his generation. Since in Poland 2024 is a year of Łasko, Zemla decided to get inspired by his tragic and nihilistic story. Although he didn't find himself a nihilist. He had serious alcohol issues and traumatic view of the world after World War II. Zemla tried capturing the emotional state of hopelessness of this time period seen by Łasko. For that purpose, she uses various techniques, creating distorted and partly microtonal musical structure. The piece is performed by electronic string quartet. It is amplified and the performers have their own guitar effects used by stop boxes. Besides live instruments, there are tape recordings of synthetic strings used in particular parts of the piece. Additionally, Zemla uses parts of the famous interview with Łasko recorded with Barbara Czekałowa in Polish radio in 1958. Here are the chosen excerpts by the composer. There are 5 of them. I'm not going to read all of them, but they are usually in a very depressive manner, very nihilistic and hopeless. The form of the piece is quite simple. It's A-B-A, and there are 5 chords which create a full 12-tone scale and which are basics for musical form. These are the chords, which are in this direction. The parts are made of 3 musical materials: improvised warning signs, Łasko voice recordings, and the variations of these 5 arising chords. In the first part, the form of it is first warning signs, followed by Łasko voice recordings, presented chords, Łasko recordings, warning signs, and the last Łasko recording. These 5 chords, presented in diminution in the first part, are extended and varied in the second part of the piece. Each entrance of the instrument is in the middle part is created diagonally by the chords components, like this, with a small exception in this chord with one sound more. The microtonality in this piece has 4 different layers. Firstly, she uses traditional microton accidentals, then a more complex action in the difference between the live instruments and recordings. By varying the expression of the recording, she creates microtonal differences between tape and live music. That technique is reinforced by guitar effects used by the players. Finally, performing the piece live, Zemla plays with the audience, choosing various acoustic configurations of the tape and live music, which creates even stronger effect on general distortion. And here we are I hope it's gonna work. We can hear the part of this piece. The score. Oh.
Człowieka, który nie wierzy w życie, który myśli, że życie nie ma sensu i tak dalej. To jest prosta historia, prawda? Jeżeli chce, żeby go traktować na serio, trzeba powiesić się. Wtedy go można traktować na serio. Jeżeli żyjesz, to znaczy, że albo się czegoś spodziewasz, albo liczysz na jakieś szczęście, albo po prostu tchórzysz, prawda? Więc to nie zasługuje na żaden szacunek.
And these are the presented chords from here to here. And from this part, we move to another Huasco part, which is this one, and from this B part, as I was saying, They are the same chords that were presented here, but diagonally created like this. And at the end of this section, which is quite repetitive, it has lots of loops, kind of like in the not microtonal but minimalism music. We come back to these chords once again. Here, they're already even more variated microtonally. Maybe I can find this part. Because it's longer, but yeah, as you can see, she gives us this question at the end, giving us a space to not be so heavy with this very depressive theme she chose. And to sum up that, even though Agata Zemla is still a young, developing composer, she already created a quite clear idiom of her musical style, which is importance of performance and intermedia, importance of spatiality, multisensory creations, often including special instruments or materials used in the performance, and finally, the importance of reportage in her pieces. At the end, I want to bring up the part of the interview with a composer from Glissando magazine, which is like one of the most important Polish magazines about modern music. A question for Agata. Often you choose subject matter that is heavy and difficult, and the musical layer turns out to be light. Meanwhile, there are signs in the scores like more darkness. Toxic plots in the content can sometimes be heard in the sound, but the music is usually clear, luminous, ambient. Is that contradiction intentional? And where does it come from? And Agata Zemla responds, it is intentional. Difficult themes should not beat up the listener. I think I get frustrated enough at times that I try to deal with these topics in this way rather than another. I take a difficult topic and I wrap it in a beautiful musical taffeta or tulle. so that I don't go into total darkness. Thank you so much for listening.
Any questions? Comments?
May I go then? Could you tell us a little bit more about this microtonal complexity, how it develops in the piece?
Yes.
At least some rough idea, and if there's any connection with systems between this pessimistic here and then the final optimistic one. I'm just curious about what she had in, how she decided.
Of course. So, as I was saying, maybe we can go back. I have more recordings in here. We have these layers.
Or maybe she gave any thoughts? Do you know? She gave you some thoughts about the plan?
Yes, I mean, she was working with synthetic strings, which were in different tunes, not all the time the same one. They were variated. The expression in the Max program was variated microtonally, but also dynamically and multiple layers.
Yes.
And I actually have these files separate. We can actually check them.
Thank you.
Let's just pick first one. Oh, sorry. This one? It's obviously not microtonal this way, but when you compare it to the live instruments, they are in slight different tunes.
But do you know if she made a plan with the systems in the composition? I mean, if Johnny Reinhardt, we were talking about if he was here, he could have said that. Okay, this is this and this.
You know what? Wait, I have this
not me.
from her, but I don't want you to see my private messages. But
no problem. Yeah.
No, I'm gonna show you because
not me.
I got that from her. I just need to open my messenger. I'm sorry.
Yes, no problem.
Straight from the source. I love it.
Give me 5 seconds. I do have that somewhere in here. Just a second. Because she actually sent me the pictures, how it was shown in the program. I didn't think about putting it here.
Because this morning in a presentation we went more, Leonid went more in detail, was focusing this, and I'm curious if there's if we can compare these decisions between the two composers.
These are the pictures, if I'm gonna find them, of the line, how the expression is developing, which I don't know where I have it. Wait a second, please.
No problem.
I think I might have it on my another computer. I'm sorry.
No problem.
I can send it to you via mail later,
until Sunday
but
or the
because
weekend.
I don't want to waste our time looking from my computer.
Sure. Yeah.
But
thank you.
She has these files where you can see the shape of the expression of the synthetic strings, and going back to the presentation, it was here, and yes, and these are also combined with extra tape, which I didn't mention actually, extra tape parts which she just created only using programs. They are not live instruments. We can hear a little bit of that at the end, and you have a lot of accidentals at the end when we have these variated chords. We actually have
some quarter tones.
Yes. We have quarter tones in here. These are the same chords, just moved by quarter tones, but also moved by glissandi.
Yes.
And also with
this is the optimistic part at the end.
Yes. This is this one. I don't know why we didn't hear the person speaking, but you could see what is in the text, like here.
Yes, I read it. Yeah.
Yes. And yes, it's variated by these and by these guitar pedals.
Mm-hmm.
They had lots of various effects, but I do not have the exact information which effect was that, because the players were improvising them. So they had like the whole set, and they were just improvising through the piece. You can actually hear it more in the second part.
I can see reverb and delay, I guess. These are reverb and delay.
Yes, but they are like the main guides. She just told me that she wanted just give them anything, but these are just like suggestions, and she wanted them to improvise in this part. In the second part, which we didn't hear because it's too long to hear it all, from here, when the loops are moving on and on, they also use these guitar stops to build up this distortion effect. So these are the layers of how she creates this distortion and microtonal tissue.
Thank you.
I'm gonna send you by the mail later the pictures. I don't have them on my computer right now.
We have time.
And that's a lot.
Yes.
Any additions? Over here.
No, just a comment to you. I mean, I'm not an expert on her work, but I think that she's more interested in creating color in microtonality. So I am not sure. Maybe you know better that she has a system that she uses in terms of exploring different intervals without harmonics, but she's trying to bring it in different parameters so that she has different colorings in the music.
Yes.
And just building attention. I think that she thinks microtonality as a different kind of timbre of the instruments.
Yes. Yesterday we were discussing about this as well, as a microtonality as timbre. I can't remember, it was yesterday, but I already forgot who was. But I remember, or anyone remembers from yesterday? I think Felipe, of course, Felipe, thanks very much. Felipe was saying that he uses himself microtonality as timbre, and then, I mean, he also didn't specify about some details, what it means and for which colors and these kind of things. I was just curious, actually. The composer told me that lots of these aspects were improvised by the players. She usually is very close and very emotional with the people that are playing her pieces. It's a very important part of her work of bringing the piece to life. And usually this score is just like a main concept, and lots of other things is happening just on the rehearsals. And that's why we don't see all of it here. We don't even have all of the recordings written in this score. Actually, I wrote them all, but they are not in the score. As well as the effects. It's just a main idea of the score, and the rest was on the rehearsals.
Great. Thank you. We had a comment back here, or question?
You've got my interest now talking about guitar pedals. I was wondering if you knew what effects were used and which instruments were modified or used in the guitar effects.
Yes, the piece is only for a string quartet, so obviously it was strings. They were attached to the guitars because it's electric string quartets. And I was asking the composer about the exact pedals, but as I was saying, it was a lot of improvising. We have delays and reverb here, but I know there were way more. They just had this whole gigantic set and they were just playing with it.
Right.
Yes.
Lucky them.
Yeah, because it was a part of a big Polish festival, modern music festival, modern Polish music festival in Wrocław. So they had a lot of equipment for this event. So they could play
Karola
with it.
Lipinski.
No. Karol Lipinski is our academic in Wrocław.
Yes.
It was in National Forum of Music.
Okay.
That's where this festival took place, and it's taking place every 2 years in Poland.
Okay.
So
You're
welcome to come at some point. Yeah, it was this year, so the next one is going to be in 2 years.
Okay.
Yes.
Just last question. Does she have performance notes for this piece?
Excuse me?
Performance notes.
I asked for them. If I had them, I would show them to you. But that's all she gave me. This one picture I forgot to show you. But no, I did not have them. Actually, I don't know if she even has them because she just printed this course, and the rest on the rehearsals, it was just instrumentalists writing these things down on their own scores. So I think only them has access to that. But actually, I don't think it would be interesting to look how exactly these effects were used. But when it comes to her pieces, I don't think she would like that. She likes her work to be a process, that it's not every time the same, that it's one of a kind, depending on the day, on musicians. So even if we saw these notes, it wouldn't be like the only true version of this piece.
No, for you as a researcher, that
yes, of course.
If you can contact the musician and gather them and make a guide, and if the piece, I think it's only performed once, right?
Yes, it was.
But if it's performed again and new people make their new notes, it's always good to compare, like,
of course,
which are the things that they created and they implied in the music.
Yeah, she usually tries to be on every performance of her pieces, and she's usually in touch with all her musicians. So it would probably work like this if it will be another performance of this piece. Yes?
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. Just to jump on this, a cool next step, if you're not totally done and you want to do more about her music, I think it'd be great to interview. It sounds like she works with that same string quartet a bunch. It might be great to get them just like on record about maybe the permissions they get as performers to help build that general sense of performance practice, and then get the specifics of that, but also just the general latitudes that you can bring to it. Because in this world of composer tells me what to do, and I got to be quiet unless I do exactly what they say, to actually have real permission would be very exciting.
Yeah.
Do you think that the quartet would be open, and other performers she works with would be open to being?
I don't know them personally, but I think it would be available. Okay. I could organize that.
Because it'd be just so great if you're like, well, composer says this, but first violin says no, I always do the distortion pedal no matter what, or whatever.
Yes, I know actually that it worked like this. She had this main idea that you use this, you use that, but it was all just a play, and the compromise between her and them, and what was their expectations, and they emotionally express this. This musical tissue.
Just a silly comment, but you were talking about the balance between the heavy and the light. That maybe a version of that on the stage is the very angry stomp at the box, the very light string play up top. I don't know.
Yes. I can arrange that. Oh, yeah. Thank you for the suggestion.
It's just a lovely project.
Thank you.
Dziękuję.
Dziękuję bardzo.
So, hello, my name is Agata Dereń, I'm from Poland, and I'm gonna tell some words about Lethargy by Alina Dzięcioł. It's a piece written for a female voice and an instrumental ensemble. In addition to the above-mentioned piece, I try to point out examples of the use of microtones in the composer's work. Alina Dzięcioł is a master's student in composition in Agata Zemla's class at the Karol Lipinski Academy of Music in Wrocław, and a graduate of the Fryderyk Chopin University of Music in Warsaw in the accordion class. She is a scholarship holder of the Young Poland 2018 program, Minister of Culture and National Heritage, the Fund of the Support of Creativity, and the John Paul II Scholarship of the City of Warsaw for Artistic Achievements. She is the winner of, among others, second prize, but first not awarded, at the 62nd Tadeusz Bert competition for young composers for her composition Secco for 4 clarinets, and honorable mention at the Matan Givol International Composers Competition in Tel Aviv for her composition The Soul of the Machine for instrumental ensemble. Her works have been performed many times at home and abroad in Switzerland, Spain, France, and a lot of festivals, among others Musica Polonica Nova, On the Road to New Harmony, the Kraków Accordion Festival, and concerts accompanying the Warsaw Autumn and Musica Electronica Nova festivals. The composer is inspired by the works of Enno Poppe. She uses his branching intervals, distances, the use of microtones, and draws on his harmony. She also admires Sarah Nemtsov, her frequent references to popular music, and her contrasts and expressiveness. She also alludes to spectralists by using a long sounds of living entities. Lethargy is a piece for solo voice and ensemble consisting of tenor saxophone, trombone, flute, double bass, percussion, violin, cello, and piano. The piece was inspired by an observation of the space during courses at the Académie für Neue Musik in Boston. The composer decided that the piece would be performed in Künstler House, which made it possible to give it a spatial feel. This observation included the thinking not only about the sonority of the piece, but also about its overall ideological concept. The performers were arranged in 4 rooms on 2 floors. The left and right rooms and the first floor remain invisible to the performers. Only the middle corridor on the second floor, where the soloist is located, is visible. The arrangement presents itself as follows. First floor tenor saxophone and trombone, left room flute, double bass and percussion, right room violin, cello and piano. The singer's seclusion from the instrumentalist appeared to have a decisive influence on the work's theme. The lethargy of the title was meant to be a manifestation of the devastating mental condition of man and his lack of response to external stimuli. The piece begins with a roughly 20-second part by a female vocalist intended to give the impression that the composition is perhaps intended for solo voice, since only the vocalist is visible to the audience. She presents the initial sound material of the piece, the notes A flat, G, B, augmented triad. These sounds are interspersed with sides to outline the characters of the main characters as a lethargic, displacing reality, isolated and closed off. Quarter-tone glissandos are deviations from the initial sound. They are intended to enhance the melancholic narrative of the piece. This can symbolize the separation of body and mind and, as it were, detachment from the surrounding world. Oscillation of sound by intervals smaller than a semitone, glissandos, sides, murmurandos, smooth dynamics changes or long-held sound or gradual changes in singing technique can be read as a means characteristic of part of the singer creating the figure of individual locked in her own mind. The composition does not contain a specific text, it consists only of voice. The lack of specific words can symbolize the problem of finding a language to communicate with the surrounding world. The first to be revealed after the vocalist introductions are the instruments on the first floor, trombone and tenor saxophone. Reaching the listener from below its trombone wave-pitch rullato, performed without a definite pitch, as the first representation of layers symbolizing disruptive external stimuli. Against its mechanical backdrop, and the continued melancholy part of the female vocalist, there are gradually fading multiphones of the tenor saxophone on long values, symbolizing solidarity with the figure of soloist. Their microtonal overtones allude to glissandos of the voice part, the aforementioned splitting. Then the trombone part changes its character, it joins the saxophone and the voice in terms of expression. It contains long values that emerge at the crescendo and fade out through the diminuendo. Pitch material is gradually expanded as a result of building up the pure fifths upward from the starting notes: A flat, B flat, G, D, B, F sharp, using distances a semitone away from these pitches. Then the first presentation of instruments located in the left room takes place. After the gradually building consonants of the trombone and tenor saxophone, the listener is leashed by E flat performed on the flute with a lot of air piano dynamics. This pitch, in addition to being one of the starting notes of the composition and occurring first in the piece, also begins the revelation on the next chord. The E flat appeared slightly earlier and was one of the components of the tenor saxophone multiphone. But in forte fortissimo, as the first emergence of the flute in contrasted piano dynamics creates the impression of an echo reverberating in another space. After about 12 seconds, the flute is joined back by the instruments on the first floor. The tenor saxophone and the trombone, which expands the sound space and places the listener at the center of acoustic events. Gradually, more elements appear in the instrumental and vocal parts, designed to thicken texture and give the impression of accelerating the tempo of the piece, such as by the increasing appearance of sudden, accented short values in forte dynamics, occurring alternately in the voice, flute, and trombone parts. While the vocalist performs at the first yoga pose in this piece, the Mudra Surya, the piano is gradually joined by other instruments in the other to the right. The cello and violin, representing layers intended to solidarify with the soloist posture, the microtonal deviations in the violin part achieved by quadrotone raising or lowering the tones that appeared earlier in the piece. And now I'm gonna present from the beginning. Kasia, masz włączony internet? Tak. Dobra, nie ładuje się, to otworzę swoją
Do you want to connect to the Wi-Fi here? It's very fast.
No, I already got it on my pen drive, so that's no problem.
Okay.
Sometimes if you get out of the full screen mode, it plays the videos.
I try.
What happens when you go this way? For some reason, sometimes the full screen mode.
Strange, yeah.
Let's try. It's not moving.
I think you have to exit the presentation.
Okay.
Just, yeah.
I'll try.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Everybody's doing something.
So that's it. Okay. And that's another configuration. We have now right side and the left side. We got upstairs and downstairs because of another place. In the later part, the texture of the piece creates a trance-like fabric in the parts of the flute, which repeats the pitch of the F-sharp colon on long values. The violin, which moves with a pulse of 8 quarter notes, repeating 2 notes on the empty D string, along with quarter-tone pitch oscillations performed on the G string, and the cello, which repeats 1 multiphone on long values. Against the backdrop of the sonic matter, the narrative of the composition is driven by the piano part, although it moves with similar rhythmic values to the violin, consists of more varied sonic material than the other instruments. In the subsequent phases of the composition, pitch material and narrative, built through the use of contrasting layers, are created in a similar manner as before. The difference is their presentation in the form of increasingly rapid melodic rhythmics run to drive a narrative characterized by increasing tension, which is then broken by the occurrence in the piano part of fifths and fourths in various octaves with delicate overtones. At the end of the composition, the singer makes a clear signal of slowly lowering her head and remains in this position until the end of the piece. And the second example is when she did a position from Yoga Mudra Surya. Right now. The piece contains performative elements. The first performative element employed by the composer is the state of lethargy, the sluggish, slow functioning indifference of the singer to what is happening around her. The climax of the performative actions in this piece is the moment when the performers of the flute and violin parts, placed in opposite rooms or upstairs, downstairs, are tasked with emerging from different sides and slowly approaching the vocalist, encircling her and trying even more aggressively, as it were, to musically awaken her from the world in which she was found herself. This one, on the other hand, is supposed to not react in any way to the outside actions. The instrumentalists eventually give up and return to their rooms. Other performative elements include the yoga positions, Mudra Surya and Mudra Prana. These positions are used to reduce stress, promote the flow of good energy, and help combat symptoms of depression, which can be responsible for a state of lethargy. The soloist gestures are accompanied by the slow raising and lowering of her hands. In addition, at the end of the composition, the singer makes a clear signal of slowly lowering her head down and remains in this position until the end of the piece. And that's the third example. There we go, upstairs and here. In the vocal part, microtones act as a means of expression meant to express specific emotional states. For example, they are an imitation of sides and microtone sonorities. In the case of glissandos, whatever they are semitones or fifths, after all, their centered still remains a microtone. Falling glissandos symbolize resignation, helplessness, and powerlessness. In glissandos in higher intervals, there is a blurring of the contour symbolizing emotional unraveling, which is further emphasized by dynamic hesitation. Ascending glissandos symbolize an attempt to awaken and a desire to act. In this section, solidarifying structures predominate. In percussion, there is a quadratone interval disturbing on the minor pitch created by the rubbing the Super Bowl with the button. This gives the effect of downward glissade. Halftone glissandos appear again. Harmonically, there is another favorite interval of the composer between a major third and a minor quarter. It is somewhat grating. In the following example, the vocalist interferes herself, thus emphasizing the instability of the intervals by using the quadratone vertically. Finally, there is a contrasting combination of solidarifying part and the obstructing part. The composer with similar treatments aims to emphasize the terrible position of man in the modern world, the pursuit and fast pace of life, which leads to many mental illnesses, including depression. She touches on similar themes in her other works. I will cite a few of them. But next, I have to go back there. Yeah, trombone and saxophone. So there's solidarity with vocalists. And she uses the intervals her favorite, as I mentioned, something like third major and quart major at 1. The last part again features another of the composer's favorite intervals, as a major 7 expanded by a quadrotone. The sound materials hark back to the aerial features. An example is a glissando in the quadrotone range performed with uprights in quadrotones. Again, the combination of solidifying and interfering elements can be seen. Also appearing are intervals characteristic of the composer's works, namely the quinta 7 and unstable third. Yeah, and that's the moment when I'm talking about composer with similar treatments. Aims to emphasize the terrible position of man in the modern world, which leads to many mental illness, including depression. She touches on similar themes on her other works. I will cite a few of them. The first of these is Soul of the Machine. Using microtones, the composer emphasizes the mechanics in the strings, which gives the impression of a machine at work. This alludes to the mechanical lifestyle and workaholism of modern men. I'm going to present it here. Soul of the Machine. Just a few minutes. Please. Grinding, inspired by Olga Tokarczuk's Almost, eyesight. Grinders grind, and that's why they exist. And what if they are some kind of transformative entity without which the world would not be able to instantiate? In the book, sometimes the grinders are just a symbol of loneliness, where a child's toy, sometimes someone just grew up grinding for coffee. For example, a woman who didn't know if her husband would return from the war. She was also in charge of the grain grinder, the element on which loneliness was thrown, sometimes as a child's toy, sometimes as an adult's competitive coffee. Microtones emphasize the struggle against the loneliness. In the passage, everyone is playing at the fight, wanting to break out of the loneliness. I'm sorry, I'm just stressed out. The next one, processes in 4 phases. First, earth, second, catastrophes, 3, ayahuasca, 4th, shimmering. The last one contains fragments from the previous parts. They are shimmering and sounds nuclear earthy, but also emotional. Composer uses oscillation of 13 and 70 cents to emphasize the hallucinogenic nature of microtones. And next example. It's just electronic. And the last one. Pancerz, which means armor, anti-emotional armor, express contrasts and fight, rejection of emotionality. The responses are out of tune. There are sweet structures symbolizing the hidden emotionality of adult. Is playing the first and the second electronics repeat half quadrotone higher. Yeah. To sum up the speech, Alina Dzięcioł uses the microtonal system to emphasize human emotional states. She focuses both on mental states resulting from life on the run, workaholism and overwork, but also associates with them with psychedelic and apocalyptic states, such as nuclear explosion. These procedures appear both in this piece Lethargy and in her other songs. I hope you liked Alina's works, and thank you.
Very nice. Any questions or comments?
Thank you. This was really great, fantastic music. You mentioned at the beginning that the composer was influenced by Eno Pope.
Yeah.
And it seemed to me that this theatrical aspect of the music and use of space is partially influenced by Eno Pope as well. He uses those elements in his music. But can you elaborate on possible other aspects that are influenced by him?
She told me that the most she take from Eno Pope the contrasts from these aggressive structures and the melancholic line, and yes, that's it.
That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was just curious, this piece for the several floors was specifically composed for this place? Or
That was composed for other plays, but there was a need for play it actually here.
Okay.
So she rearranged her this way.
So that means she changed things in the composition?
There was no right side and left side, so she did it upstairs and downstairs.
And the audience was behind the conductor, or spread around, or was it just kind of...
In the middle.
Middle.
In the middle, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where was this performed?
Once again?
Where was this performed? Is the Lucerne? Was it Canada?
Yes. That's
I've been there. That's
Thanks. I forgot to mention it.
And this one, Soul of the Machine or Soul in the Machine?
So the machine was in our Academy of Music performance.
Was it like at Sound Ambiguity Congress a few years ago?
No.
Okay.
No.
I had the feeling I saw this there at some point. When was it composed?
She composed it. Sound of the Machine. She won a prize in Tel Aviv, so it was only performed there.
Okay.
In
So
Tel
it's
Aviv.
okay. Yes.
But not this play. This one.
Yes, but when was it?
2022.
Okay. No, there's no way.
She wrote that for the contest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And won second prize.
Great.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Rafał Barcella.
First, I think I should like to begin with clearing up the terms with notation, because there's got to be quite a bit of it, and I should like to bring to attention that what might be widely understood is not necessarily what I found to be the case in terms of notation. So bendero notation, most of the times you understand it as either medieval or Renaissance music. This applies to these areas. But, well, in fact it is modern notation still. Traditional, conventional notation is still mensural, still basis on a measured rhythmic value. It's got clear proportions between rhythmic values. It's defined, it does not work outside of double or triple meter. It's got clear proportions between shorter and longer values, rhythmic values. And most importantly, I believe at least, it assumes or even demands rhythmic synchronization. It's like a table. It demands music be synchronized, which I will elaborate on later. And apart from that, obviously, it defines the linear succession of music, of pitches or sounds in general, and aligns them, synchronizes them. It is popular, very popular, everybody reads that. There's lots of infrastructure for that. By infrastructure I mean just notation problems, finale, sibelius, anything. everything's ready for that to use it. It's got a very long cultural trace, and well, it allows the score to to adapt to spatially, graphically, to adapt to the music, as in it doesn't necessarily stay the same, as in bars always take up the same amount of space. When there's no change in tempo, graphically, logically, they should also remain the same, equal. In here, they do not do that, because, well, obviously, if you've got a bar full of 30 seconds, then no chance of taking that, because in the space of a bar that's only got 4 crotchets. So that is what I would consider a con, a disproportionate graphical layout, especially inconvenient in terms of sight reading scores and keeping up with the flow of the piece when you just look at the score. You don't have the possibility to read it out. There's lots of optical noise, especially when there's multiple voices, multiple cats. As in harpsichord or piano or organ, not for big organ. Optical noise in multi-component pitch structures, so basically chords, very complicated chords. And, well, in order to achieve something that is not synchronized, or gives the feeling of not being synchronized, we have to cheat the system a bit. Either by very complex rhythmic structures, or by literally taking it out of the box of the notation, just in a box. It graphically and theoretically and practically takes it outside of the notation system. I'd like to give some comparison of olden days, Couperin, Prelude non majeur, the difference of simplicity of this notation and of Bach's harpsichord sarabande, when in effect the rhythmic flow is very similar. Yet the first one, the Couperins, is much more intuitive, I believe, at least. Phrasing is very clear. I don't know if you would like to have some short listings of these, or a comparison. Come on, you can do it. This is, of course, a dance, so it is rhythmic impulses are much more noticeable, but still, the amount of black that appears here is disproportionately disproportionate to the effect that we achieve. That it's just free flowing. And Trevor Pinnock was very strict with this in this case. Got more an extreme case in here. Let's just see. a bit frustrating, but sorry. Well, then there's again issue of aleatoric music, indeterminate music. As I mentioned, it's in direct conflict with the ideas of measure notation. To notate something aleatoric, you have to take it outside of the rules of regular traditional notation, which is why the boxes, why the waves, why the lines. They remove them from the surrounding measural constraints, and well, it does provide some difficulties, not terrible difficulties, but still. Other ways require, as I mentioned, very complex rhythmic structures, which most of the times, first, aren't performed perfectly according to the score, and second of all, are just difficult to read. The amount of work that demands to be performed before the rhythm is performed, or executed rather, is again disproportionate to just something that could be written as cooperanded, spacing it out on the score and figure it out on how it looks graphically. So having all these in mind, and with a bit of inspiration from Penderecki and the like, during some work on a previous Passacaglia, I've experimented with notation a bit, and I like calling things, giving them names. So I decided to call it durational notation, which works, we shall see how it looks like in a second. But the principles are quite simple. The sound is the defining, sound duration is the defining element, not measure, not a rhythmic value. It's got a graphically fixed timeline, not changing, absolutely constant. So you can just flip the pages, and at the same pace you will have an idea how the work develops, how the tensions build and resolve. Pitch is defined traditionally by note heads, followed by lines, which define the duration of each sound in relation to the timeline. It assumes any degree of rhythmic desynchronization. It can end up, one performer is 3 pages behind some others, and that's the idea behind this notation. But there are also ways to organize them a bit and control the synchronization a bit more. It demarcates strictly linear succession and a synchronic odd outline, as I mentioned. Maybe let's see some traits, some goods and bads of it. It is intuitive once the first steps are taken to look at it and figure out what it is. Especially since people mostly do know how to read Penderecki or other works related like that, so it's not something completely black magic. Clears the notation of redundant symbols. No beams, no rhythms, everything's just what it is according to the timeline that it happens, or should happen. I believe it increases the legibility, especially of multi-component structures, pitch structures, and rhythmic, of complex rhythms. Indeterminism is also kind of a basis of this notation, so it's a natural way to notate aleatoric music, and it gives a clear picture of amorphic narration times. However, it is unconventional, relatively. Oh, thank you. There is no infrastructure for that, no program can do this easily. You either have to create fonts and fake it till you make it, or just paint everything by hand in graphical programs and so forth. Also, there are difficulties in notating minute metric, especially metric, highly impulsed rhythmic structures. Mostly because, well, the seconds of the pages don't stretch. You've only got, I don't know, half a centimetre or a centimetre or an inch or whatever on the page, and you only can fit there as much as you can. It's a bit of a constraint, but for a composer it can also be an interesting way to figure out how to create rhythmic impulse density other than conventional methods. It is also obviously unfit for notation of highly synchronized musical actions, so clear vertical moments, clear chords, not a good idea for that. This is a comparison of how something like this, which is, well, lots of space, lots of ties, they don't really give you any information, they just how you write music, but they're pretty much useless. You can just get rid of them and write it like this. This is still in bars, it's not the durational notation, which we should, I think, begin explaining a bit. Time for me out. Okay, this is the timeline. This is how the duration lines look like. Quite simple. Here we've got runners, I call them runners, collectors, or guidelines maybe. So they go from the timeline and help guide the eyesight to the note. Well, it's still very simple. Duration lines can also be exchanged for a picture of the vibrato or a trill. Also in case of clusters, RCA is used to demarcate clearly, because I don't believe just putting a flat above a thick line would tell a woman much what to do. Because of the specifics of the notation, I believe clusters are quite useful, taken from medieval chorale, well, plain chant notation. Segments like this. Here are again clusters. Some showing these because I would like to present and also maybe push a bit to think about how we notate and how it influences what we write and how we write. Also how it is performed, how it comes to existence. So I'm also showing just a case study of some places that could be inconvenient. This was very nice to come up with. Aleatory boxes. You've got material, you've got waste, you've got dynamics, you've got articulations. Just choose whichever you want and perform as you wish. Short run through the notation, so now let's maybe move on to Passacaglia because it's already 16 minutes. It was performed on 9th of March in the National Forum of Music by NFM Orchestra Leopoldinum. And, well, the basis of any Passacaglia is subject/ostinato. In this case, it is consists of 3 ideas. Quite simple ideas, as you can see. The upper plane is a patapoia, so a chromatic descent. The lower plane is a parody, citation of pedal part accompanying the subject exposition in the 4th trio sonata, second movement, by Bach. So these are 2 musical ideas, and the third one is what brings them together, which is implied polyphony. I don't know how popular this term is, honestly.
The which term?
Implied polyphony.
Implied. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
With regard to register, you mean? With regard to register?
Yes. I asked because I noticed that, for instance, in Poland it's not a very well known term, so I also have a bit of a mission to promote it a bit because it's a very useful term. So here are the characteristics again. It works as an ostinato, but also it constructs the entire pitch set of the entire piece, which is 10 note without C sharp and D sharp. There's only one section when it extends to full 24 tone sets, but the exception confirms the rule. Form and structure strictly follows the pitch set, as I mentioned, outside of this one part. The sound is, because of that, quite organic. The subject, or ostinato, moves swiftly between planes, between performer groups. Subject is also sometimes constructed vertically or diagonally throughout the musical structure. Tension is built mostly through the intra-thematic dualism, so most of the times the subject is actually divided into two separate voices, and the dialectic between them is the main driving force of tension. And it's got 18 phases / variations, which I've described shortly here, and I think it is time that I'm going to be jumping through slides unless I figure out how to. I don't have time for that. So let's get back to the. Let's start at the beginning. Is it always described?
This morning was very loud.
You have your own volume, is that?
They are playing now, just very quiet. On the recording, it's not that quiet. I think it's something with the TV, maybe. Maybe I can also open the score.
I guess.
I forgot to translate these. First exposition of the subject, because the beginning is just an introduction to the pitch set rather than a proper exposition. Let's move on maybe to the more microtonally interesting section, because I haven't mentioned that yet, but mostly because, is it playing again? No. Mostly because microtones are inherent parts of this piece, but on a different level. It's as more, like it was mentioned before, more as a timbre or as a color, or as a means of introducing conscious, but not microtones per se, rather different systems of tuning, clashes of of regular playing, which is fifth based, and harmonics, which are natural based. So all the clashes in the upper aliquots, upper harmonics, they create some rather, I would say, interesting effects are used for building up tension. So the first section would be a devolution of some regular sound. Is it completely muted? Yes, it is completely muted. Performance to contrast the strong vibratos with absolutely flat baroque-like intonation, flat as in no vibrato. This is the subject. Various planes of sonority. Maybe some collegno battuto. Yeah, that would be. I don't know how the score is visible. Quite visible. The resolution is a bit off. Contour movements of. I haven't got anything spectacular, it's just a Passacaglia ensemble, and barely audible once because of this, second because of, I don't know why it's so quiet, and that's all that. Let's see this section. Well, after these, after rather lengthy segments of similar oral characteristic, and I asked. Well, can't be and so on. The contrast between at least 2-3 plays, regular performance, then the Baroque like intonation, as well as the seagull effects in violas. They play on creating, based on the dialectics between these three groups. They play with this, and I must admit that the recording cut out quite a bit of these, which is obviously happens every time in recordings, but in this case it's a worrying amount. Which is quite well audible. Part showing microtonal segments, but also sections that have some interesting notational solutions and how they materialize in sound. How the other parts of creators of the piece outside of me come to realize it. Section is especially dense with clashes between different ways of performance. Not much is notated in terms of how it results, but that's part of the idea, to give the performer a bit more space to just figure it out on their own, how they feel comfortable, what they feel comfortable with.
Could I ask how does the conductor...
There was no conductor.
There was no conductor.
And it was intended, but they managed to play it just from the concertmaster, which I'm very impressed by.
And each of the horizontal, the vertical lines here, are they timed? I see little numbers on top.
Yes, it's orientational. They weren't timed.
They were not.
There was an idea to perform it with a click, but who went without it? Who managed?
I would just be concerned. I mean, you have real events that are occurring there, and so how you coordinate them. If they begin to drift by the time you get to the end of the piece, they can get way off.
They can drift apart.
Yeah.
There are the red lines. Are they shown? Oh no, they don't show here. Mm-hmm. This one, for instance, is a red line, and this is an area where they should coordinate. They have signals between themselves, and they manage.
And are they playing from part, or are they playing from full?
Parts.
From
parts.
From parts.
Yes. A part is just this. Each of these segments. It did work out.
Yeah. No, I'm impressed. I'm very impressed.
It did work out as intended. There were some mess ups, as with the final chord, for instance. This section drifted a bit apart, but oh well. So it is.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the idea behind this notation. It's all acceptable.
You evoke composers from the 1950s, of course, like Mauricio Cagel, Stockhausen, Earl Brown. But you know, one thing that I would mention is that in that indeterminate music, it clearly has a type of sound or sheen about it. I mean, with regard to notated music, in menstrual notation, like Fernie Howe, for example, or Boulez, for example, it has a very different type of sound to it, which I think is noteworthy. I remember once I was conducting Cage Atlas Eclipticalis, which is a kind of graphic thing, but it has a very specific constraint that players have to do. There were a couple of numbers, and you had to do that number and that number and that number. And it was a student orchestra, and I remember they got the feeling that it was indeterminate. So the marimba player just started to say, well, I'm just going to make it up because it's, Cage, and Cage would like that.
Yeah.
And people could hear immediately that it was not following that type of notational constraint. So I just think it's interesting. And you can hear that here. It has an elegant quality to it. But if that was all notated, I think it would sound different.
As in bars, regular bars?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it would. A lot of different. I don't think it... I think it would be way too much work to write it down in... As it was performed, for instance, or how it was intended. Like, down in bars, absolutely possible.
I'm not saying it should be. I'm just saying that these are...
Yes, but I'm saying that it would be completely different. It would change the piece. But this also allows for every performance to be, instantaneous in the physical understanding.
So, may I?
Yeah, of course.
So is it safe to say that the numbers, minutes and seconds possibly that we see on top, those are just suggestions?
Yes. They are just for rehearsal reasons.
Rehearsal marks, basically.
Yeah, basically rehearsal marks, because as you can see, there aren't any. We just use seconds to coordinate. Okay, let's start from 10:10.
That makes sense, but there is this sort of contradiction there, because as you know, as a musician, as a composer, the first on the first beat, when you see all these lines and numbers, the first impression is that the music is very much timed. Right? It looks like if you've seen, for instance, the Période by Gérard Griset, it looks like very much like this. You have this vertical lines and times that there you have to conduct at each second.
Yes.
And then the contradiction is that it's not supposed to be like that.
Not that it's not supposed to be. It doesn't have to be.
But it could be.
It could be.
It could be very much timed.
Yes, it could be very much timed, but it's again just a suggestion. Time is extremely fluid in music, and there's not much. Music is generally quite contradictory. I observe quite a lot of inconsistencies in many things, and it does look like it should be very timed or very strict. Come on. Clear vertical signals, but it doesn't have to be.
Well, I mean, the timing in music, the meters and bars, or seconds or timings. It's just an instruction to perform music, but music
yes,
that's
it
beyond
helps,
that.
It helps them coordinate the performance, but it's not a scenic moment.
But you are adhering to the greatest metaphor, though, of notated music, which is this idea that time moves from left to right as well.
Well,
so
yes,
that's an absolute metaphor. I mean, there's nothing about how time travels, which is how we read a book. It's just, or that a pitch is up here or a pitch is down there. It is interesting that it does have that type of connection to mental notation as well.
Well, the idea was not to make it too difficult, so that nobody can start reading this. Yeah. So that you have to read a full book and get a proper course.
Christian Wolff does this. He has non-linear. And if you look at the music of the Ars Subtilia or the Ars Nova, it's very interesting how you have very complicated things which are not presented in score format at all. And to look at them notated, you know how complicated they are, right? It's these incredible rhythms, and they're off by 1/8 note, and they all add up at the end. And they're so complicated because they weren't never intended to be conceptualized in that modern notation that we have. They were independent, and they added up in the end, and they were incredible kind of toggling that would go on. That was a very different type of nonlinear notational system. Technically, as mentioned.
I just have like an additional question because, to be honest, I'm a little bit irritated of the so many kind of labs that go like, which for me it would make sense if you want things to be absolute vertical and still you can find a better way to reduce the information because all I can see like is lines. Yeah. You understand? And maybe because you said that it was colored and that was my next question that you answered, why you didn't make bigger sections where things had to run parallel and then they perform an act, like for example, if you see this page, for me it's like the middle section are activities that have to start and end because then you have like the ensemble figures and give them like a longer time frame without all these kind of vertical last lines that run through to do it because in the end of the day this is exactly what they performed, right? I mean, approximately. Yes, and that leads to the other question. I mean, I think it would be super easy to play with a kind of timer next to the score. Not even a click track, so that they can hear each other, but still have like an indication that is next, like, that the time is running, and it's easy. But my question is, and I want you to tell me because I don't know how much time you spend working with them, that I think, as I see it, that 80% of the effort of the musician goes to synchronicity. And if it's not your primary goal and you take all this kind of unnecessary, as you say, material out, then you change the perception, which is like the unificity of sound. Understand? Instead of the linearity of sound.
I don't think that was the case. On the first rehearsal, I wasn't present because, well, just tradition. The composer shouldn't be present on the reading of the score, not to stress out the ensemble. It was an hour and a half, and when I was on the second rehearsal, they already played it without any issue. So I don't believe that this was any problem. They tried we had some ideas how to make sure that everything is okay, that they feel comfortable with this. I do admit that the vertical lines are a bit of a noise. I would like to figure out something to clear it up to make it just less, irritating, annoying.
It reminds me of Stockhausen's mixture. I don't know if you know that work between modulators. And he for him it was just almost like an etude in graphic notation, but he limited himself for each different type of graphic exploration to a page, right? So things couldn't go too far awry. But it's interesting. It just kind of reminds me of that this is much more daunting because how long is this work altogether? The running time of it?
Here it's marked 13:35. 13:35. But it lasts. It can. The performance, the premiere, I think, was a bit longer, which is also acceptable. Well, just wait a bit.
But you could do like 14 pages and have 1 minute in one page, you understand? Like, I don't know, I'm being stupid now, but it's kind of that I see a lot of information, which in the beginning it's like cool, but how you synchronize that. And I thought this is your primary goal, as I see that. And then if it's kind of not a primary, secondary or whatever goal, maybe you can find a way to have like a second, maybe you can keep it like for demonstration purposes, but you can have another one with less timing information that is a little bit more reader friendly.
You know, this is also very cluttered, but this is the conductor, this is the score. This is for the conductor. He has to see everything. Yeah. What they color or not, sure, but in past I didn't. Maybe I did. I think I did. Yep, I did. So maybe let's see contrabasso. Different formats, of course. It's not as cluttered.
Yeah.
It is. These can be difficult a bit, but if there's conductor, they can show when to enter. And even now there was no conductor, and they managed. It didn't fall apart. There wasn't that much issue. So I do understand your concern, but well, in part it's partly solved. I think it still could be even clearer, but well, that's up to development.
They played it.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds beautiful.
Yes.
It's great. But that's sort of the contradiction that I was talking about, because it looks very difficult, as if that's very, very important, but
very
it's not.
important. Yeah.
I still have a question, a fundamental question about why, I mean, what characteristics did you get from the Passacaglia?
From Passacaglia?
Yes, from the traditional Passacaglia. Because I wouldn't imagine microtonality, I mean, I don't see a direct relation between these four notes. I mean, unless you take the etymology of the word Passacaglia, Passacaglias, I think it comes in Spain, was first used. And so in microtonality, I mean, why did you choose this form or this title as Passacaglia and not something else? Because I don't really get it. What is the essence that you took from this Passacaglia?
I believe that this is all a Passacaglia, and it is noticeable.
From the, I mean, if you know
probably not.
the idea of the Passacaglia,
it is a Passacaglia in form. There are clear sections where the subject is constantly repeated in various forms. Not always appears clearly, as I know in the finale section where here the basis were clear indication of the subject shortened, but
it's just another way of perceiving things.
It's dispersed throughout the entire score. It helps to build the organic sound of it. And microtonality, because we're also asking about why microtonality in Passacaglia. Why not? I don't think I have a different answer to that.
No, but I mean, between the idea of Passacaglia and microtonality, what is the what is the connection? I still don't get it.
I don't think there is a connection. Just microtonality is an inherent part of how sounds work.
Yes.
How sound works. So I just use it. It's I'm sorry.
One question here.
Thank you again for the presentation. I just wanted to add off the comments earlier that I had an experience running a piece for Zoom Orchestra when everything wasn't showing up, and the conductor literally just put the counter in her Zoom window.
Yeah.
And we did the larger sections. So it's definitely possible, but at the same time, like I need to respect, different approaches to stuff, but they can definitely handle those longer sections and just looking at a timer. Yeah. And on Zoom, in this case, our drift was Zoom just screwing it up. That was part of the design.
Delay
Yeah. Just a very last question. I'm really sorry if you said that and I missed it. Can you tell me a little bit to the half up layer of the theme, that you have this kind of chromatic scale.
Yes.
Why did you divide it in this way? And if you
I didn't divide it. I constructed it from these two separate ideas.
Yeah, but I'm very interested why you chose the intervals, like in semitones and thirds in this way. I mean,
it's just the upper plane. Well, let's begin with the first note. Then alternating between the planes. Just
yeah, no, because it is a very clear chromatic scale that I heard it as well. It's a little bit more prominent than the lower level because you have like the intervals going in one direction chromatically, and this is a little bit more of a sharp characteristic.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I wanted to, if there is an idea behind that, or
the idea is just this, and that it turns out. Well, obviously, I was expecting it to turn out more prominent because it's a clear line. The bass is a bit more jumpy, so naturally we'd see less connection between each note. But I don't see that as an issue. That's just how it is.
No,
yeah, I know. I just,
I mean, it's an agglomeration of two Passacaglia objects. Was it a senior comment?
Yeah, just a comment, not on your piece, which I think works very well, but parts of it do remind me of Penderecki, and I went to a rehearsal with Penderecki conducting in Los Angeles. I forget what the piece it was. It may have been the St. Louis Passion. So a very large piece for orchestra and choir, that begins with this kind of unmetered sections. And he spent the first 15 minutes or so of the rehearsal changing it all to 4/4. He went through and told all the singers, okay, your entrance is now on this measure, this beat. Of course, this was probably 1988 or something, so 20 or so years after it had been written. It just...
Well, sometimes the easier way is not necessarily the better way, but sometimes when you have union people on stage, it surely is.
True enough.
You have to think about that.
Or a conductor who might be less experienced.
Or singers too, for that matter.
Probably the singers. It is always a bass, but everything's got a bass. Just have to.
Thank you very much. Very interesting.